If you've been waiting for the New Orleans Saints to trigger a rebuild, it's finally here. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jackson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net and Saints analyst with WWL TV. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, if you've been waiting for the New Orleans Saints to rebuild, it's finally here, and the New Orleans Saints draft class definitely had a type. Let's get you all caught up as the NFL draft for the New Orleans Saints in 2025 is officially over. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making us your first listen and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Call it a retool, call it a relaunch, call it a reload, call it whatever you want. The New Orleans Saints have finally, although it will be silent, committed to a rebuild. And there is no bigger and better example of that than the selection of Tyler Shough in the second round of this NFL draft at pick number 40, as he represents the Kellen Moore era. Kellen Moore's era is coming in. Dennis Allen's era is likely on its way out over the course of the next couple of years. If you've been following along with this show for some time, if you're an everydayer, this probably doesn't come as much of a surprise to you, as we've discussed that probably you'll see like the coaching staff kind of flip here in 2025. And then you'll see at roster cuts, some unexpected moves that weed out some of the Allen era acquisitions, and then a big time roster redux, if you will, going into 2026. What I will give Kellen Moore credit for, though, is that he didn't necessarily wait until 2026 to begin the roster redux. A lot of Dennis Allen is going to be on its way out of the door. And we saw a bit of that with the selections that took place in day 3. In case you missed it, in day 3, the New Orleans Saints selected 5 players. Let me highlight that one more time for you. The New Orleans Saints took 5 players in day 3. They walked in with 5 selections. They walked out with 5 players. They walked in with 9 selections. They walked out with 9 players. They walked in with all their draft picks that they had. They walked in with the draft picks that they had from next season, sans the one pick that they traded to get Devon Godchaux earlier this offseason. And they left with all of the same 2026 draft picks that they entered the 2025 NFL draft with. The regime is new and the actions are changing. The New Orleans Saints did not make a single trade one way or another when it comes to this draft. Instead, in the 4th round at 112 and 131 respectively, they took Oklahoma linebacker Danny Stutsman, followed by Louisville cornerback Quincy Riley. These guys are both fits for Brandon Staley's defense, which will allow them to be able to weed out some of the Dennis Allen era defense. A guy like Danny Stutsman, who is a stud linebacker. I think it was Dane Brugler's 3rd ranked linebacker going into this draft. Somebody that can come down and play hard at the line of scrimmage, that can hit those run fits. Not necessarily a big coverage guy, but a guy that's going to be able to come down and make those big plays in the run game, contribute as a pass rusher, all that. When the Saints go to their 3 down linemen, 3 linebacker, 5 defensive back sets, I expect Danny Stutsman to be on the field. And I expect Danny Stutsman to give Pete Werner a run for his money when it comes to those rundowns. So we'll see exactly which way it goes for him. But I'll tell you what, Danny Stutsman's a guy that's going to bring a lot of energy to this defense, and it's going to be really, really hard to keep off the field, even though he's a 4th round pick. Quincy Riley gives you a guy that can play on the outside as a corner for you. 15 interceptions over the course of his career, anywhere between 40 to 54 pass breakups. It just kind of depends upon which publication you use. But 40 formal pass breakups or passes defended. A guy that can make plays at the ball, but also packs a little bit of speed and can play with that physical man coverage style, and has experience playing in the zone match schemes. Those match coverage schemes where you start off in zone and then you transition to man. That's what he did over at Louisville. That's what he's going to be asked to do in Brandon Staley's defense. I think he becomes a potential immediate starter for you on the outside, opposite Kool-Aid McKinstry, allowing a player like Alontae Taylor to play to his strength, moving inside and outside and playing in that star role, being a blend of a little bit of everything. Then in the 6th round, they took running back out of Kansas, Devin Neal. Devin Neal is a player that I really like. 3 straight 1,000-yard rushing seasons, 17 total touchdowns in each of the last 2 years. He had a season last year where he ran for over 100 yards in 8 different games, and only in 4 of them did he carry the ball more than 20 times. This is a guy that has a ridiculous amount of production. He's the leading Kansas rusher in terms of rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, and 100-plus yard rushing games, and he still averaged less than 200 carries per season. So he's got major production, playing in 49 of his possible 50 games, having never missed a single game due to injury. He opted out in his final game of the season this past year. Never missed a single game with injury, but yet, despite being the workhorse guy, still has a ton of tread left on the tires and is not one of those rundown pieces that you see sometimes, like, having 300, 400 carries per season and all those other things. And so I think that he's somebody that comes in and maybe challenges a guy like Kendre Miller, who, again, a Dennis Allen era selection. Then you look at the 7th round, 248. You saw UCLA tight end Moliki Madavao, and for him, you look at a big-time blocker, right? Only really had 1 season as a receiving threat, and that was this past season, just over 500 receiving yards. So he's already been a blocker, a protector. Spent, again, more than 50 games or 50 games in college football. So he played a lot as a blocker before transitioning over to a pass catching role. The reason why that's important is because usually it's the blocking that gets in the way of tight ends making a clean transition to the NFL. So a good head start for him amongst other 7th round tight ends. We'll see where things go for him. 6'5", 260 pounds. Then you want to talk about things changing. The New Orleans Saints wrapped up this draft in the 7th round with pick 254, Syracuse edge rusher Fadil Diggs, somebody that they went and worked out. They did a little bit of work with him over the course of the offseason. We'll get to speak with him, it sounds like, on Monday, either tomorrow or Monday. And he is a 6'4", 257, win with bend, stand-up speed rusher. Finally. Took him until the 7th round, but they did it. They drafted a guy that can come in and be a situational pass rusher, that can stand up on the edge and be fast enough to get after the quarterback. Gave Brandon Staley exactly what it was that he was talking about on WWL radio before the draft on the first day, where he said you have to have speed and athleticism on the edge because you need that to be able to counteract the outside run game and modern day quarterbacks. And you get a guy in Fadil Diggs who might be able to help you do that. Now, he's a 7th round pick, and much like Moliki Madavao, we're going to keep kind of the expectations low. But if there's any 7th round pick that I cannot wait to watch across the NFL this year, it's Fadil Diggs, because I'm very excited to see what it is that he will do. New quarterback, new foundational pieces on the offensive line and defensive line, going back to Vernon Broughton in the 2nd day, going back to Kelvin Banks in the 1st day. They got a linebacker, a corner, and a safety that all fit a new scheme and allow you to be able to turn the page on Dennis Allen's old scheme. You got a stand-up, sub-280-pound defensive end, a true stand-up speed rusher in Fadil Diggs, 4.57 40-yard dash for that young man. They got a sleeper running back that's going to be able to come in and immediately contribute and help to balance things out for Alvin Kamara a little bit. And so you got Shough, who replaces Carr, which I think he will do in 2025. You've got Banks, who puts Penning on notice, right? So Shough replaces Carr. That's a Dennis Allen era addition. Banks puts Penning on notice, a Dennis Allen era draft pick. Broughton comes in and threatens those Dennis Allen interior defensive line additions over the course of the past few years. I think that he complements a guy like Brian Brzee. Tyrann Mathieu, unfortunately, has gotten his contract kind of redone to the point to where he's getting paid based on incentives. He gets a flat rate, but then he gets, or not a flat rate, he gets a base salary, but then he gets percentage based on percentage of snaps played in 2025. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him hit that Cam Jordan wall where they start to tick those down. And then all of a sudden, guys like Jonas Sanker, as well as who was drafted in day 2, as well as Justin Reed, see their snaps tick up. Now they're too deep at star, and they have an outside cornerback that can help you out and keep Alontae Taylor where he's strong on the inside. So you're taking a Dennis Allen era selection there in terms of Alontae Taylor, but you're putting him in his role. And you potentially have Pete Werner's replacement when his new contract extension is up. The Dennis Allen era is being weeded out. And the Kellen Moore era, the Brandon Staley era, the New Orleans Saints era is here. Will it be successful as a draft class? I don't know. I'm not saying that this is the best draft class in the world. I'm just trying to point to what I think it is that the New Orleans Saints are doing, which is rebuilding, which is what we've all been waiting for quite some time. I'm not trying to sell the draft class or anything like that. It's very simple. It's very, very simple. This draft class shows you that the New Orleans Saints have changed their mentality. And I think they've changed their mentality in the right way. I'm going to tell you how else they changed their mentality here in just a sec, because what I want to do is go through the draft trends as well as the biggest need, which stems from the New Orleans Saints' biggest failure in this NFL draft class. We have that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Saints brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs, the place you need to go to find your next hires, especially if you're a small business owner. You know that your work doesn't end when you clock out. Business is always on your mind. That's why LinkedIn clocks in when you clock out to kind of help give you a little bit of that peace of mind. LinkedIn makes it nice and easy to post your job for free, share it to your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. And did I say for free? I think I said for free, but I'll say for free again for you. It's why 72% of small businesses say that LinkedIn has helped them find high quality hires, because nobody's got a network like LinkedIn. So go and check them out today. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Hope you didn't put any money down on Shough Sanders to the New Orleans Saints, because that definitely did not work out. But if you put money down on Shough Sanders to the Cleveland Browns, it rolled all the way right back around again. What an incredible story that's going to be. Can't wait to hear the 30 for 30 on all of that. But FanDuel, no need for 30 for 30 there, because they're going to give you everything that you're looking for. The NBA playoffs are here, and they're giving you everything you need as a new customer to be able to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel, you place your first $5 bet. You get $250 in bonus bets. If that wins at $250 for you to then use picking your favorite team, diving into a bunch of player props like three-pointers made, assists, blocks, steals, all that good stuff. You can even get into some live betting as well and combine a bunch of favorites into prop bets, or a bunch of your favorite prop bets, in order to take advantage of those same-game parlays and get your chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head over to FanDuel.com today to claim your $250 in bonus bets. It's over at FanDuel.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The New Orleans Saints are changing the tune for themselves. Do I think they're going to be a winning team in 2025 because of this draft class? No. I didn't think they were going to be a winning team without the draft class. But do I think that they got worse with this draft class? No. I think what they're doing is reshaping themselves into the vision of another coach. They're turning the page. And you can tell by some of the trends that the New Orleans Saints use. Let's go back real quick to the 9 selections that the New Orleans Saints had. They walked in with 9 selections. They walked out with 9 players. That is a rebuild draft. The last time the New Orleans Saints did that, by the way, 2015. Now, I'll be honest with you, that 2015 draft class, awful. Did not work out for the New Orleans Saints. So you're hoping for better results from this 9-person draft class 1 decade later. But I think the thing that you're really looking at here is the changing mentality of the way that the New Orleans Saints did things. They didn't trade. They didn't move. They didn't get desperate. They made the selections that they wanted to make at the picks that they wanted to make them, and they let the draft come to them. So with that, I wanted to take a look at what some of the things that were deciding factors for the New Orleans Saints. And I want to tell you where the New Orleans Saints absolutely failed when it came to this draft class. The first thing I want to look at when it comes to trends is what were the things that the New Orleans Saints were absolutely focused on? Well, here's what I'll say. They took very few projects in this draft. I think the biggest project in this draft, and forgive me, maybe you disagree with me, maybe you don't think he's a project, but I think Tyler Shough is a project, right? 1 year of really good production, pretty good production over at Louisville. Not gonna rain on his parade in terms of what it was that he did over at Louisville, but it was 1 good year, and it was his last good year of 7 collegiate seasons. And so now my question is, and I've stated this on the show before, but I'll state it again. My big question around Tyler Shough is, did you just see the ceiling at Louisville, or are you seeing the momentum in terms of what he did in the last year? That's going to be on the New Orleans Saints to answer. And in fact, not just answer, that's going to be on the New Orleans Saints. Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator Doug Nussmeier, quarterback coach Scott Tolzien, everybody that's going to be responsible for developing Tyler Shough, who I do believe will be the starter in 2025, at least unless Spencer Rattler has some incredible camp and solidifies the role. But I think Derek Carr's gone. I think the Tyler Shough draft shows you that. I think Tyler Shough being Kellen Moore's first ever quarterback and the New Orleans Saints' first ever quarterback in their entire history of their team in the second round, being selected the highest drafted quarterback in franchise history since Archie Manning in 1971. All of those things say, yeah, he's probably going to play for you, right? And so those guys, Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, Scott Tolzien, will need to make sure that what we saw at Louisville was not his peak, but a part of his momentum. And if they can do that, then great. But I think that that's your biggest project here. I think everybody else is a pretty proven commodity that you've brought in. 7th round picks, I think you always kind of say, okay, well, UDFA kind of expectation there, see kind of where things go. But here's some of the trends that I noticed in this draft. 40 plus games of experience for every single one of these players. No one is an inexperienced player in this draft class. Everyone from Kelvin Banks Jr. at 1'9" all the way down to Fidel Diggs down at 7'254" has played at least 40 games in their career. They have a ton of experience. That's one of the reasons why I say that it's not necessarily a project draft class, a development draft class. These guys are pretty good proven commodities with upside, with your ability to continue to develop them. 8 of them have a multi-sport background. That seemed to be something that was really important to these guys. Baseball backgrounds all around in terms of ball tracking, anticipation, things like that. Hand-eye coordination for the offensive linemen that did things like play basketball, wrestle, all this other stuff. Every single one of them, except for Tyler Shough, is durable. 8 of 9. Durable. Not a single one of the players outside of Tyler Shough has missed more than 4 games in a single season, and only 2 of them did that one time each. You remember the New Orleans Saints draft classes where they were constantly investing first-round draft picks in guys that missed most of seasons sometimes. That was not what this draft class was. They went for a durable, proven, healthy stock of players that played, every single one of them, even those that missed seasons long because of injuries like Tyler Shough, still played at least 40 games a season. Some of them played 50. So you get durable, multi-sport athletes, lots of experience. 3 of them were team captains. 5 of them were postseason award winners. 5 of them were Senior Bowl participants. 2 of them, in addition to that, getting invites to the Senior Bowl, but either declining or not participating. And then 1 player that did not get a Senior Bowl invite got an East-West Shrine Bowl invite. That was Fidel Diggs. Those were the trends when it came to how the New Orleans Saints selected. They didn't take projects. They didn't take raw guys. They took guys that can be developed and need to be developed because they're coming from college to the pros. Anyone that's going from college to the pros needs to be developed, but they didn't take guys that were just like blank canvases, like a Marcus Davenport or a Peyton Turner, right? They didn't take those guys. Then on top of that, instead, they ended up taking guys that you don't have to roll the medical flag dice on, except for the one that plays the most important position in the game, Tyler Shough at quarterback. But Mickey Loomis spoke with us after day 3 of the draft, after the draft is over, and he mentioned that one of the reasons why they feel really good about Tyler Shough's medicals is because the 3 injuries that he suffered were bone breaks, not soft tissue injuries, and not like knee injuries and things like that. I understand that. He's saying that basically because their bone breaks impact injuries, that they're not as likely to reoccur, not that it's impossible that they reoccur. In fact, the collarbone injury did reoccur, but that they're, I guess, less likely to reoccur because they weren't soft tissue injuries. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it, right? I'm not buying that. I'll believe it when I see it. And I'm not saying that Mickey Loomis is lying. I'm not saying Tyler Shough's guaranteed to get injured. It's just that, like, when you're a guy that's got a lot of injuries in your history, you're a guy that's got a lot of injuries in your history, period, full stop, right? And so you got to be able to come out and show that. And I am excited for Tyler Shough to get the opportunity to do that. Like, I want to see him succeed here in New Orleans because covering a good football team is fun. You being a fan of a football team that's not putting you through the doldrums is fun. Like, that's a good thing for you to be able to enjoy. So I want that for you. Professionally, I want that for me. We'll see how things go. The last thing I want to highlight is where the New Orleans Saints failed in this draft class. And not only did they fail at it in their draft class, they failed at it in undrafted free agency as well. They added 8 players so far in undrafted free agency. So it's a total of 17 players the New Orleans Saints have invested in so far over the course of the draft draft picks as well as the undrafted free agents, and not a single one of them is a wide receiver, let alone a big-bodied wide receiver. The New Orleans Saints addressed tight end, offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, safety, linebacker, quarterback, running back, and I can't remember if I said linebacker or not, but like they hit all these different positions, edge and interior. The two things they didn't help themselves in directly were interior offensive line. Maybe indirectly they help themselves, right? You draft a tackle, you move a player inside, you get good on the deep on the inside. I mean, maybe that's a thing you do. But they certainly didn't help themselves in terms of landing a big-bodied wide receiver whatsoever. And so with that being the case, I think that's the next thing that they absolutely have to do. And in undrafted free agency, so far at the time that I'm recording this, they have not really helped themselves in that area either. And of course, doing that, signing one of those players in free agency is not something that's going to be guaranteed to really help you, right? It's not going to be guaranteed to really help you. So I think that that is the situation that you're looking at here, that the Saints need to go out there and find a big-bodied wide receiver to help Tyler Shough. That's what I think you're going out there to find next. Keenan Allen, Tyler Boyd is out there. But there's a few other big-bodied wide receivers you can go out there and try to get. That's what I think they need to be able to do next. So that's what I'm looking at for all of this. You're right. Like this is, I think you're looking for that big-bodied wide receiver to be the next signing or something like that, right? Like they still have roster spots available. Eventually, Ryan Ramczyk's retirement will happen, and then you get, your and when I say big-bodied wide receiver, I mean like 6 foot plus, 200 plus pounds, right? Somebody that can help you in the short and intermediate areas along with Juwan Johnson. That's what I think you're going to see. So we'll see. That's where I see things going. I think the New Orleans Saints have signaled their rebuild. They're on their way to it. And as a big part of it, this is now kind of where things are headed for New Orleans. And maybe it's a good trajectory. Maybe it's not. We'll have to wait and see how everything goes. But I'm super excited to see these guys out on the field and to see them get the opportunity to prove themselves, because you're going to see a new quarterback, I think, in 2025. I don't think you're going to see Derek Carr, and you're going to see an all-new regime that is now brought in this major influx of new faces and new players to help them bring in their new systems, their new schemes, and their new future. 2025 is going to be a very fun year for the New Orleans Saints in covering all the things that are now different. All right, coming up in Monday's episode, we'll go back through, we'll take a look at each of these players again. We'll take a look at the undrafted free agent class and all that as well. Hope that you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe if you're going to Jazz Fest. If you're going the second weekend, I'll be out there. As always, if you see me, please say hi. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. If you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.